It was a bright afternoon, and sunlight streamed through the large windows of a downtown bar. The air smelled of beer and fried food. The chatter of customers mixed with the low hum of rock music playing from the speakers. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the room. At the center of the bar, a biker gang had claimed their territory. Leather jackets, chains, loud voices. They ruled the place without asking. Every newcomer was met with stares and smirks. To them, intimidation was a game, and fear was a trophy. Then the doors opened. A man walked in. He moved slowly, deliberately, with a calm that almost felt out of place in the chaos of the bar. Jeans, an old jacket, sunglasses tucked in his shirt, hands relaxed at his sides. No entourage. No show. Just a quiet presence. Steven Seagal. He walked past the gang, nodded politely to the bartender, and took a seat at the counter. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't draw attention. Yet, somehow, the bikers immediately noticed him. One of the gang members, a tall man with a jagged tattoo running down his neck, sneered. "Hey old man, you lost or something? This bar isn't for weaklings like you." The other bikers laughed. Drinks sloshed. Chairs scraped the wooden floor. They leaned closer, pushing him back with rough elbows. "Come on, Grandpa, show us what you got," one shouted. The room buzzed with excitement, watching this supposed old man get humiliated. Some customers laughed nervously, others recorded on their phones. Everyone assumed this would be an easy show of dominance for the gang. Steven didn't flinch. He didn't even flinch an eyebrow. He just looked at them with calm, steady eyes. The kind of gaze that didn't shout, but warned silently. Then it happened. A small, deliberate movement. A shift in stance. The energy in the room changed. What had been laughter and cheers became an uneasy silence. People stopped recording. Conversations halted. The gang members froze mid-laugh, mid-motion. Seconds later, chaos erupted. The bikers realized far too late that they had misjudged the man in front of them. Their laughter died in their throats. The room held its breath. By the time anyone understood what happened, the entire bar would remember that afternoon forever. What happened next would leave jaws on the floor and teach a lesson no one in that bar would ever forget. The sunlight poured through the tall bar windows, casting long shadows on the polished wooden floor. It was a bright daytime afternoon, and the streets outside hummed with life. Cars honked, people chatted on sidewalks, and the distant sound of construction filled the air. But inside the bar, the energy was different. Inside, the bar was loud and crowded. The scent of fried food, beer, and cigarette smoke lingered in the air. Glasses clinked, laughter echoed, and a jukebox played a classic rock song in the corner. It was the kind of place where people came to forget their problems, to laugh loudly, and sometimes to show who was in charge. At the center of the bar, a group of bikers had taken control. Leather jackets, heavy boots, and chains that glinted under the sunlight. They occupied the central tables, spreading their presence like a storm over everyone else. Each biker had an air of dominance. Every laugh, every shove, every smirk reinforced their belief that power was gained through fear. The leader, a tall man with jagged tattoos snaking down his neck, wore a smirk that spoke of arrogance. His gang followed suit, echoing his energy, making the room feel tense even in the bright daylight. The staff avoided the gang's area. Customers whispered to one another, some nervous, others curious. Then, almost unnoticed at first, the bar doors opened. A calm breeze followed the movement of the door as it swung wide. Heads turned. Conversations paused. A man entered. Not loudly. Not with an entourage. No show of power. Just a quiet presence that somehow demanded attention. Jeans. Old jacket. Plain shoes. Hands relaxed at his sides. Face composed, eyes calm. No anger, no pride, no display. Just a steady gaze, observing, measuring, waiting. It was Steven Seagal. He walked slowly past the bikers, nodding slightly at the bartender. No words. No sign of intimidation. He moved toward an empty seat at the far counter. Every step was deliberate. Every movement precise. Yet, somehow, the energy of the room shifted. The bikers noticed him immediately. One of the gang members laughed, loud and mocking. "Hey, old man. You lost or something? This isn't a place for weaklings like you." He leaned closer, elbow jabbing toward Seagal. The others joined in, pushing, shoving, laughing. The tension in the room grew. Chairs scraped. Glasses rattled. Some customers nervously pulled out their phones to record. Some whispered among themselves, trying to make sense of the audacity. The bikers assumed dominance. They believed they controlled the room. They thought they could humiliate anyone at will. To them, this man looked like an easy target. Seagal didn't react. Not a single muscle twitched. Not a word was spoken. Just a calm gaze that met the biker leader's eyes. The kind of gaze that made you pause without a sound. Then, the leader leaned in closer. "Come on, Grandpa. Show us what you got," he shouted. The gang erupted into laughter. The bar echoed with their mockery. Even the bartender glanced nervously at Seagal, unsure if he should intervene. But Seagal remained seated. Silent. Observing. Waiting. The air felt heavy. Everyone in the bar, bikers included, sensed that something was about to happen. Yet no one could predict it. In that moment, the contrast was clear. The gang believed that loudness and aggression meant power. But true power doesn't announce itself. True power waits. True power observes. And in that bright daytime bar, surrounded by sunlight and laughter, true power had arrived. Backhand index pointing right. Comment below where you are watching from. Backhand index pointing right and salute those who stay calm under disrespect. Seagal took a slow sip of his drink. The bikers laughed again, mistaking patience for weakness. Little did they know, the room was about to witness a lesson no one would forget. The stage was set. The sunlight reflected off the bottles and glasses, making the air seem electric. Every biker thought they were in control. Every customer thought this would be a quick show of dominance. But one quiet man in a plain jacket had already changed the rules. The tension built silently, like the calm before a storm. Seconds away from the inevitable, the bar waited. And everyone, knowingly or unknowingly, held their breath. The bar fell into a strange, uneasy silence. The sunlight continued to stream through the windows, catching the dust in the air, but the energy of the room had shifted. The bikers still thought they were in control, but now, for the first time, a hint of uncertainty flickered in their eyes. The leader, tattooed neck glinting under the sunlight, leaned in even closer. "You think we're scared of you, old man? You think that stare will stop us?" He smirked, showing yellowed teeth. Around him, the gang laughed. They jeered and nudged each other, feeling invincible. A tall biker knocked a chair toward Seagal, as if testing him. "Let's see you handle this," he shouted. The chair slid across the floor, stopping just inches from Seagal. The clatter was loud. Every head in the bar turned. Customers gasped. Some tried to hide behind tables. Phones were lifted, cameras ready to capture what they expected to be humiliation. Seagal didn't flinch. He didn't flinch an inch. He shifted his eyes toward the biker, calm and deliberate. His hand rested lightly on the counter. He didn't reach for the chair. He didn't speak. His silence, controlled and steady, made the room feel heavy. The leader spat on the floor near Seagal's feet. "Disgusting! You're nothing. You're just an old man pretending to be tough." The gang erupted in laughter again, some pounding the tables, confident this would be their moment. Then a biker shoved Seagal in the shoulder. A little force, meant to provoke anger. The room watched, waiting for a reaction. The air felt electric. Customers leaned forward. Phones hovered. Even the bartender stepped back, sensing the tension that had now turned dangerous. Seagal slowly stood. No sudden movements. No anger. Just a quiet rise from his seat. Every eye followed him. The bikers grinned, sure of their dominance. Then he spoke. A low, calm voice, soft enough that everyone had to lean in. Sometimes arrogance blinds the eyes that should see. The words were almost casual. Yet the weight in the room shifted. The bikers paused. Laughter faltered. They looked at each other, unsure. Customers whispered to one another. The bar felt smaller, the sunlight brighter, every detail sharper. One biker tried to strike Seagal, thinking he could break the calm. He swung his fist. In a split second, Seagal moved, not fast, not chaotic, but precise. The biker stumbled backward, off balance. Another tried to push him. He fell before he even landed a hit. The gang tried to react together, thinking numbers would give them power. But every movement was met with controlled precision. Chairs tipped. A biker grabbed a bottle in panic. It slipped from his hands. The room echoed with the sound of metal and glass. Customers ducked. Phones clattered to the floor. Within seconds, the gang was off the floor. Some bruised, some shocked, some humbled beyond belief. Their laughter had disappeared. The bar was silent, save for shallow breathing and distant whispers. Seagal stood in the middle of the room. Composed. Untouched. The sunlight caught his eyes. A faint smile appeared. The lesson had been delivered without yelling, without threats. Just presence, patience, and skill. No one moved. The bikers were frozen, staring at the man they had tried to humiliate moments ago. They realized, too late, that arrogance had blinded them. The crowd, stunned, slowly began to murmur, some clapping softly, others shaking their heads in disbelief. The bartender quietly approached. "Sir, are you okay?" he asked, voice trembling. Seagal nodded slightly, calm and unbothered. The bikers, some on their knees, others leaning on tables for support, finally understood. The old man they mocked was no ordinary man. The bar had witnessed something it would never forget. Silence fell once again. The sunlight glinted off the scattered chairs and fallen bottles. The lesson had been delivered. Power didn't scream. Strength didn't boast. Respect had been earned in the quietest way possible. The bar remained silent. The bikers slumped against tables, wide-eyed and frozen. Their arrogance had been crushed, their bravado evaporated in seconds. Customers whispered in disbelief, some still holding their phones, unsure whether to continue recording. Even the bartender leaned against the counter, heart pounding. Outside, the black car idled patiently. A small team of executives stepped out, carrying folders, briefcases, and official documents. They moved with urgency, weaving through the scattered chairs and broken glass toward the bar doors. The sunlight reflected off their polished shoes and shiny documents, creating an almost cinematic moment. Steven Seagal paused at the doorway. His calm gaze scanned the room one last time. Then, almost as if on cue, the executives approached him. One of them stepped forward, holding a thick folder. "Mr. Seagal." "We've been waiting for you, sir," the man called out, his voice firm but respectful. The room froze. The bikers blinked. Customers leaned closer. Murmurs filled the air. "Wait. What?" "That's him," someone whispered. The bartender, still trembling, asked softly, "That's Steven Seagal?" "Yes," said the executive. "He's the new majority owner of this bar chain." The bikers' faces drained of color. The realization hit them like a brick. The old man they had mocked, pushed, and humiliated was not just anyone. He was the owner. The man who controlled the business, the bar, and the authority they had assumed belonged to them. One biker, shaking, stammered, "Wait, you own this place?" Seagal didn't smile or shout. He didn't raise his voice. He simply nodded slightly, calm as ever. "I came here to enjoy a drink," he said. "But now, it seems I need to make a change." The room fell silent again. The weight of the moment pressed on everyone. Customers leaned forward, some still gripping their phones. The bikers shrank into themselves, realizing that their moment of pride had been their biggest mistake. Seagal walked slowly toward the center of the room. His steps measured, deliberate, each one reinforcing the quiet authority he radiated. The bikers shuffled backward instinctively, their bodies tense, their confidence gone. Should he fire them? A customer whispered to a friend. Or forgive them? Backhand index pointing right comment below. Fire or forgive? Let's see who has the biggest heart. Seagal's calm demeanor didn't waver. He turned to the bartender, who had finally found his voice. "Thank you for staying professional," he said. The bartender bowed slightly, relief flooding his face. Then, Seagal addressed the bikers directly. His voice low but steady, every word measured. Arrogance and disrespect will always meet consequences. You mocked someone you thought was powerless. That was your mistake. The leader swallowed hard. He could barely meet Seagal's eyes. The younger bikers shifted nervously, some looking at each other for guidance. They knew this was a lesson they would never forget. The executives handed Seagal a folder of papers. He signed a few documents with calm precision, sealing the authority he already held. Every motion was controlled, every gesture deliberate. The bikers watched in stunned silence. Seagal finally turned toward the exit. His movements were effortless, controlled, silent. The sunlight outside caught him in a perfect frame, making him appear even taller, even more composed. The bar had witnessed a demonstration of true power, humility, and authority. The bikers slumped further. Customers whispered to each other. Phones captured the moment. Everyone understood that the man they had tried to humiliate had not only survived but asserted his dominance with calm skill and silent strength. The room was left in awe, the lesson lingering like a heavy shadow. Respect had been demanded, not shouted. Authority had been established, not flaunted. The bikers, the staff, and the patrons would never forget what had happened that sunny afternoon. Backhand index pointing right. Type respect if you believe true power is calm and silent. Backhand index pointing right and tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment personally. The stage was set for the final moments, a resolution that would cement the lesson and leave the bikers humbled forever. The sunlight streamed through the windows, glinting off broken glass and overturned chairs. The bar was quiet now. The chaos from moments ago had faded, leaving a heavy, charged silence. The biker gang, once loud and domineering, sat slumped, wide-eyed, and defeated. Their arrogance had been replaced with awe, fear, and deep regret. Steven Seagal stood in the center of the room. Composed. Every muscle relaxed, every movement deliberate. He had not raised his voice. He had not needed to. The lesson had been delivered with presence, skill, and silent authority. Customers, still holding phones, whispered among themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief, while others exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the rare display of power and restraint they had just witnessed. The biker leader finally found his voice, trembling as he spoke. "Sir, I'm sorry. We didn't know." His words trailed off. Seagal's eyes softened slightly, but his calm intensity remained. "That is exactly the problem," he said. "You acted without knowing. You assumed strength was loudness. You assumed arrogance was power. That is never true." The younger bikers shuffled nervously, avoiding eye contact. Some were still on their knees, some leaned against tables, and all were silent. The energy in the bar had shifted entirely. Respect, which had been absent moments ago, was now palpable in every corner of the room. Seagal turned to the bartender, who had stayed professional through the chaos. "Thank you for maintaining composure," he said. The bartender bowed slightly, relief and pride mingling on his face. He had done nothing but act with integrity, and now he was being acknowledged. Then Seagal addressed the bikers one last time. "This isn't about punishment," he said. "It's about understanding that true strength comes with restraint. Arrogance and disrespect will always meet consequences, whether immediate or delayed. You learned your lesson today." The bikers nodded silently. Some tried to speak, but the words caught in their throats. They understood the weight of the moment. They understood that their actions had consequences far beyond what they imagined. Seagal picked up his jacket, adjusted it slightly, and walked toward the exit. The sunlight behind him framed his figure, making him appear taller, even more composed, as if the entire scene were orchestrated to teach a lesson. Every eye followed him. Customers held their breath, some applauded softly, others simply stared in awe. One of the older patrons leaned toward a friend and whispered, "That was more than a fight. That was a lesson in life." Outside, the black car waited. The executives approached once more, carrying folders and briefcases, ready to continue business. Seagal nodded to them, silent acknowledgement passing between them. Then he stepped into the car, leaving the bar behind, but leaving the lesson echoing in every corner. The bikers remained frozen, processing what had just happened. They had come in thinking they could humiliate a man. They left knowing that arrogance and disrespect had consequences far beyond their imagination. The room itself seemed to exhale, the tension slowly dissipating as the bar returned to a semblance of normalcy. The staff began picking up broken chairs and bottles. Customers murmured to one another, recounting what they had witnessed. Some raised their phones to continue recording, but it no longer felt like capturing chaos. It felt like capturing respect, power, and humility all in one moment. Seagal's presence had transformed the room, silently, without a word of anger. His authority was unquestionable because it had not been forced. His strength had been evident because it had been controlled. The lesson was clear: true power is not loud, and respect is earned, not demanded. The bikers finally left the bar, heads bowed, humbled. Their laughter, their arrogance and mockery had vanished entirely. What remained was awareness, respect, and the knowledge that they had been in the presence of someone extraordinary. And in that sunlight-filled bar, amidst the scattered chairs and broken bottles, one truth remained clear: presence, calm, and skill speak louder than any shout or boast. The customers and staff would remember this day forever. The lesson had been delivered. Respect had been earned. The bar was quiet again. The sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the aftermath of the chaos. Broken bottles, overturned chairs, and scattered papers told the story of what had just happened. But beyond the physical damage, there was a deeper change in the energy of the room. Respect had replaced arrogance. Humility had replaced pride. And a lesson had been etched into every mind present. Steven Seagal had walked through the chaos with calm and silent authority. He had not shouted. He had not threatened. He had simply been himself, measured, composed, and aware. That alone had shifted the balance of power. The bikers, once loud, dominant, and mocking, had been humbled. Their arrogance had been met with patience and skill, proving that true strength is never loud, but always evident. The customers whispered among themselves. "Did you see that?" one asked. "He didn't even fight like we expected, and yet, he won." Phones lay forgotten on tables. Some had recorded parts, but most were now just absorbing the lesson. This was a moment that couldn't be fully captured on video. It had to be felt, understood, and remembered. Even the staff, who had been cautious and respectful from the start, felt the weight of what they had witnessed. They realized that true power and respect are earned through conduct, not intimidation. The older clerk who had recognized Seagal earlier smiled faintly. He had understood the lesson even before the reveal. Stay humble, stay calm, and never underestimate anyone. Outside, the black car drove away, carrying Seagal to his next destination. But the impact of his presence lingered. The bikers slouched against tables, their faces pale, their voices gone. They had come seeking dominance, but instead, they had been taught a lesson in humility and respect. They would never forget it. And that is the core of the story. Respect isn't something you show only to the powerful or the rich. Respect is something you show to everyone, especially when you think no one is watching. Because one day, the person you look down on may be the one who holds authority over you, or simply the one whose example teaches you the hardest lesson. Steven Seagal had demonstrated that true power is silent. True strength is controlled. And true respect is earned, not demanded. The lesson was clear: arrogance can be crushed by patience. Disrespect can be met with authority without anger. And humility is often the most powerful form of strength. The sunlight continued to fill the bar. Customers slowly returned to their seats. Staff resumed cleaning, but the atmosphere had changed. Everyone present carried with them a memory that would last a lifetime. Every glance, every motion, every silent gaze of Seagal had delivered a message stronger than any words. Backhand index pointing right. Type respect in the comments if you believe humility is real strength. Backhand index pointing right and tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment personally. Moments like these are rare. Not because people cannot demonstrate strength, but because few understand that strength without control is meaningless. Few understand that respect shown only to those above you is empty. True power, true influence, and true authority come from calm, measured action, and integrity in every choice. For the bikers, the staff, and the customers, the lesson was unforgettable. Arrogance meets consequences. Disrespect meets awareness. Humility meets admiration. And those who act with calm authority often leave the deepest impression. As the bar slowly returned to normal, the memory of the confrontation lingered. Chairs would be set upright, broken bottles swept away, but the story of that bright, sunny afternoon would remain. People would recount it for years. They would tell friends, colleagues, and family. The day a quiet, calm man in jeans and an old jacket walked into the bar and changed everything without raising his voice. Seagal's presence reminded everyone that strength isn't about showmanship. It isn't about boasting or intimidation. It is quiet. It is measured. It is earned. And in that quiet, calm presence lies the greatest lesson of all: respect everyone. Always. Even when no one is watching. Because the world has a way of revealing who truly matters, who truly leads, and who truly possesses power.